Storyland Classics Bedtime Stories Treasury, Volume 1. Wynken, Blynken and Nod by Eugene Field. Wynken, Blynken and Nod one night sailed off in a wooden shoe. Sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. Where are you going, and what do you wish? The old moon asked the three. We have come to fish for the herring fish that live in this beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we, said Wynken, Blynken and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in the beautiful sea. Now cast your nets wherever you wish, never afraid are we. So cried the stars to the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken and Nod. All night long their nets they threw to the stars in the twinkling foam. Then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail, it seemed, as if it could not be. And some folk thought 'twas a dream they'd dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken and Nod. Wynken and Blynken are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head. And the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while Mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock in the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken and Nod. The Little Engine That Could by Watty Piper. Chug, chug, chug. Puff, puff, puff. Ding dong, ding dong. The little train rumbled over the tracks. She was a happy little train, for she had such a jolly load to carry. Her cars were filled full of good things for boys and girls. There were toy animals, giraffes with long necks, teddy bears with almost no necks at all, and even a baby elephant. Then there were dolls. Dolls with blue eyes and yellow curls, dolls with brown eyes and brown bobbed heads, and the sweetest little toy clown you ever saw. But that was not all. Some of the cars were filled with all sorts of good things for boys and girls to eat. Big golden oranges, red-cheeked apples, bottles of creamy milk for their breakfasts, fresh spinach for their dinners, peppermint drops and lollipops for after-meal treats. The little train was carrying all these good things to the good little boys and girls on the other side of the mountain. She puffed along happily. Then all of a sudden she stopped with a jerk. She simply could not go another inch. She tried and she tried, but her wheels would not turn. What were all those good little boys and girls on the other side of the mountain going to do, without the jolly toys to play with and the wholesome food to eat? "Here comes a shiny new engine," said the little clown, who had jumped out of the train. "Let us ask him to help us." So all the dolls and toys cried out together, "Please, shiny new engine, do carry our train over the mountain. Our engine has broken down, and the boys and girls on the other side will have no toys to play with, and no wholesome food to eat, unless you help us." But the shiny new engine snorted. "I pull you? I am a passenger engine. I have just carried a fine big train over the mountain, with more cars than you ever dreamed of. My train had sleeping cars with comfortable berths, a dining car where waiters bring whatever hungry people want to eat, and parlor cars in which people sit in soft armchairs and look out of big plate glass windows. I carry the likes of you? Indeed not." And off he steamed to the roundhouse, where engines live when they are not busy. How sad the little train and all of the dolls and toys felt. Then the little clown called out, "The passenger engine is not the only one in the world. Here is another coming, a fine, big, strong one. Let us ask him to help us." The little toy clown waved his flag, and the big, strong engine came to a stop. "Please, oh please, big engine," cried all the dolls and toys together. "Do pull our train over the mountain. Our engine has broken down, and the good little boys and girls on the other side will have no toys to play with, and no wholesome food to eat, unless you help us." But the big, strong engine bellowed, "I am a freight engine. I have just pulled a big train loaded with costly machines over the mountain. These machines print books and newspapers for grown-ups to read. I am a very important engine indeed. I won't carry the likes of you." And the freight engine puffed off indignantly to the roundhouse. The little train and all the dolls and toys were very sad. "Cheer up," cried the little toy clown. "The freight engine is not the only one in the world. Here comes another. He looks very old and tired, but our train is so little, perhaps he can help us." So the little toy clown waved his flag, and the dingy, rusty old engine stopped. "Please, kind engine," cried all of the dolls and toys together. "Do pull our train over the mountain. Our engine has broken down, and the boys and girls on the other side will have no toys to play with and no wholesome food to eat, unless you help us." But the rusty old engine sighed. "I am so tired. I must rest my weary wheels. I cannot pull even so little a train as yours over the mountain. I cannot. I cannot. I cannot." And off he rumbled to the roundhouse, chugging, "I cannot. I cannot. I cannot." Then, indeed, the little train was very sad, and the dolls and toys were ready to cry. But the little clown called out, "Here is another engine coming, a little blue engine, a very little one, but perhaps she will help us." The very little engine came chug-chugging merrily along. When she saw the toy clown's flag, she stopped quickly. "What is the matter, my friends?" she asked kindly. "Oh, little blue engine," cried the dolls and toys, "will you pull us over the mountain? Our engine has broken down, and the good boys and girls on the other side will have no toys to play with and no wholesome food to eat unless you help us. Please, please help us, little blue engine." "I'm not very big," said the little blue engine. "They use me only for switching in the yard. I have never been over the mountain." "But we must get over the mountain before the children awake," said all the dolls and toys. The very little engine looked up and saw the tears in the doll's eyes, and she thought of all the good little boys and girls on the other side of the mountain who would have no toys and no wholesome food unless she helped. Then she said, "I think I can. I think I can. I think I can." And she hitched herself to the little train. She tugged and pulled and pulled and tugged, and slowly, 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 they started off. The toy clown jumped aboard, and all the dolls and toy animals began to smile and cheer. Puff, puff, chug, chug went the little blue engine. "I think I can, I 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 think I can." Up, up, up. Faster and faster and faster and faster the little engine climbed until at last they reached the top of the mountain. Down in the valley lay the city. "Hurrah, hurrah!" cried the happy little clown and all the dolls and toys. "The good little boys and girls in the city will be happy because you helped us, kind little blue engine." And the little blue engine smiled and seemed to say as she puffed steadily down the mountain, "I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could." The Moon by Robert Louis Stevenson. The moon has a face like the clock in the hall. She shines on thieves on the garden wall, on streets and fields and harbour quays, and birdies asleep in the forks of the trees. The squalling cat and the squeaking mouse, the howling dog by the door of the house, the bat that lies in bed at noon, all love to be out by the light of the moon. But all of the things that belong to the day cuddle to sleep to be out of her way. And flowers and children close their eyes till up in the morning the sun shall arise. The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. Many, many years ago lived an emperor who thought so much of new clothes that he spent all his money in order to obtain them. His only ambition was to be always well dressed. He did not care for his soldiers, and the theatre did not amuse him. The only thing, in fact, he thought anything of was to go out and show a new suit of clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, and as one would say of a king, he is in his cabinet. So one could say of him, the emperor is in his dressing room. The great city where he resided hosted strangers from all parts of the globe. One day, 2 swindlers came to the city and told people that they were weavers and declared that they could manufacture the finest cloth to be imagined. Their colours and patterns, they said, were not only exceptionally beautiful, but the clothes made of their material possessed the wonderful quality of being invisible to any man who was unfit for his office or unpardonably stupid. That must be wonderful cloth, thought the emperor. If I were to be dressed in a suit made of this cloth, I should be able to find out which men in my empire were unfit for their places. And I could distinguish the clever from the stupid. I must have this cloth woven for me without delay. And he gave a large sum of money to the swindlers in advance, that they should set to work without any loss of time. They set up 2 looms and pretended to be very hard at work, but they did nothing whatever on the looms. They asked for the finest silk and the most precious gold cloth. All they got, they did away with, and worked at the empty looms till late at night. I should very much like to know how they are getting on with the cloth, thought the emperor, but he felt rather uneasy when he remembered that he who was not fit for his office could not see it. Personally, he was of the opinion that he had nothing to fear. Yet, he thought it advisable to send somebody else first to see how matters stood. I shall send my honest old minister to the weavers, thought the emperor. He can judge best how the stuff looks, for he is intelligent, and nobody understands his office better than he. The good old minister went into the room where the swindlers sat before the empty looms. Heaven preserve us, he thought, and opened his eyes wide. I cannot see anything at all. But he did not say so. The swindlers asked him if he did not admire the exquisite pattern and the beautiful colours, pointing to their empty looms. The poor old minister tried his very best, but he could see nothing, for there was nothing to be seen. Oh dear, he thought, can I be so stupid? I should never have thought so, and nobody must know it. Is it possible that I am not fit for my office? No, I cannot say that I was unable to see the cloth. Now, have you got nothing to say? Said one of the swindlers, while he pretended to be busily weaving. Oh, it is very pretty, exceedingly beautiful, replied the old minister. Oh, what a beautiful pattern! Oh, what brilliant colours! I shall tell the emperor that I like the cloth very much. We are pleased to hear that, said the 2 weavers. And they described to him the colours and explained the curious pattern. The old minister listened attentively, that he might relate to the emperor what they said. And so he did. Now the swindlers asked for more money, silk and gold cloth, which they required for weaving. They kept everything for themselves, and not a thread came near the loom. But they continued, as hitherto, to work at the empty looms. Soon afterwards, the emperor sent another honest courtier to the weavers to see how they were getting on and if the cloth was nearly finished. Like the old minister, he looked and looked, but could see nothing, as there was nothing to be seen. Is it not a beautiful piece of cloth? asked the two swindlers, showing and explaining the magnificent pattern, which, however, did not exist. "I am not stupid," said the man. "It is therefore my good appointment for which I am not fit. It is very strange, but I must not let anyone know it." And he praised the cloth, which he did not see, and expressed his joy at the beautiful colours and the fine pattern. "It is very excellent," he said to the emperor. Everybody in the whole town talked about the precious cloth. At last, the emperor wished to see it himself. With a number of courtiers, including the two who had already been there, he went to the two clever swindlers. "Is it not magnificent?" said the two old statesmen who had been there before. "Your Majesty must admire the colours and the pattern." And then they pointed to the empty looms, for they imagined the others could see the cloth. "What is this?" thought the emperor. "I do not see anything at all. That is terrible. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be emperor? That would indeed be the most dreadful thing that could happen to me." "Really," he said, turning to the weavers, "your cloth has our most gracious approval." And, nodding contentedly, he looked at the empty loom, for he did not like to say that he saw nothing. All his attendants who were with him looked and looked, and although they could not see anything more than the others, they said, like the emperor, "It is very beautiful." And all advised him to wear the new magnificent clothes at a great procession which was soon to take place. "It is magnificent, beautiful, excellent," one heard them say. Everybody seemed to be delighted, and the emperor appointed the two swindlers imperial court weavers. The whole night, previous to the day on which the procession was to take place, the swindlers pretended to work and burned more than 16 candles. People should see that they were busy to finish the emperor's new suit. They pretended to take the cloth from the loom and worked about in the air with big scissors and sewed with needles without thread, and said at last, "The emperor's new suit is ready now." The emperor and all his barons then came to the hall. The swindlers held their arms up as if they held something in their hands and said, "These are the trousers, this is the coat, here is the cloak," and so on. They are all as light as a cobweb, but they could not see anything, for there was nothing to be seen. "Does it please your Majesty now to graciously undress," said the swindlers, "that we may assist your Majesty in putting on the new suit before the large looking-glass?" The emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put the new suit upon him, one piece after another, and the emperor looked at himself in the glass from every side. "How well they look! How well they fit!" said all. "What a beautiful pattern! What fine colours! That is a magnificent suit of clothes." The master of the ceremonies announced that the bearers of the canopy, which was to be carried in the procession, were ready. "I am ready," said the emperor. "Does not my suit fit me marvellously?" Then he turned once more to the looking-glass, that people should think he admired his garments. The emperor marched in the procession, under the beautiful canopy, and all who saw him in the streets and out of the windows exclaimed, "Indeed, the Emperor's new suit is incomparable. Oh, what a long train he has! How well it fits him!" Nobody wished to let others know he saw nothing, for then he would have been unfit for his office, or too stupid. Never the Emperor's clothes were more admired. "But he has nothing on at all," said a little child at last. "Good heavens, listen to the voice of an innocent child," said the father, and one whispered to the other what the child had said. That made a deep impression upon the Emperor, for it seemed to him that they were right. But he thought to himself, "Now I must bear up to the end." And the chamberlains walked with still greater dignity, as if they carried a train which did not exist. The Rockabye Lady by Eugene Field. The Rockabye Lady from Hushabye Street comes stealing, comes creeping. The poppies they hang from her head to her feet, and each hath a dream that is tiny and fleet. She bringeth her poppies to you, my sweet, when she findeth you sleeping. There is one little dream of a beautiful drum. Rub-a-dub it goeth. There is one little dream of a big sugar plum. And lo, thick and fast as the other dreams come, of pop guns that bang and tin tops that hum, and a trumpet that bloweth, and dollies peep out of those wee little dreams with laughter and singing, and boats go a-floating on silvery streams, and the stars peek-a-boo with their own misty gleams, and up, 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 where the mother moon beams, the fairies go winging. Would you dream all these dreams that are tiny and fleet? They'll come to you sleeping. So shut the two eyes that are weary, my sweet, for the Rockabye Lady from Hushabye Street, with poppies that hang from her head to her feet, comes stealing, comes creeping. The Sugar Plum Tree by Eugene Field. Have you ever heard of the sugar plum tree? 'Tis a marvel of great renown. It blooms on the shore of the Lollipop Sea, in the garden of Shut-Eye Town. The fruit that it bears is so wondrously sweet, as those who have tasted it say, that good little children have only to eat of that fruit to be happy next day. When you've got to the tree, you would have a hard time to capture the fruit which I sing. The tree is so tall that no person could climb to the boughs where the sugar plums swing. But up in that tree, sits a chocolate cat, and a gingerbread dog prowls below. And this is the way you contrive to get at those sugar plums tempting you so. You say but the word to that gingerbread dog, and he barks with such terrible zest that the chocolate cat is at once all agog, as her swelling proportions attest. And the chocolate cat goes cavorting around from this leafy limb unto that. And the sugar plums tumble, of course, to the ground. Hurrah for the chocolate cat! There are marshmallows, gumdrops, and peppermint canes, with stripings of scarlet or gold. And you carry away of the treasure that reigns as much as your apron can hold. So come, little child, cuddle closer to me, in your dainty white nightcap and gown, and I'll rock you away to that sugar plum tree in the garden of Shut-Eye Town. Johnny Cake by Joseph Jacobs. Once upon a time, there was an old man and an old woman and a little boy. One morning, the old woman made a Johnny cake and put it in the oven to bake. You watch the Johnny cake while your father and I go out to work in the garden. So the old woman and the old man went out together and began to hoe potatoes, and left the little boy to tend the oven. But he didn't watch it all the time, and all of a sudden he heard a noise, and he looked up, and the oven door popped open, and out of the oven jumped Johnny Cake, and went rolling along end over end towards the open door of the house. The little boy ran to shut the door, but Johnny Cake was too quick for him, and rolled through the door, down the steps and out into the road long before the little boy could catch him. The little boy ran after him as fast as he could clip it, crying out to his father and mother, who heard the uproar, and threw down their hoes and gave chase too. But Johnny Cake outran all three a long way, and was soon out of sight, while they had to sit down, all out of breath, on a bank to rest. On went Johnny Cake, and by he came to two well-diggers, who looked up from their work and called out, "Where are ye going, Johnny Cake?" He said, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy, and I can outrun you too." "Ye can ye? We'll see about that," said they. And they threw down their picks and ran after him, but couldn't catch up with him, and soon they had to sit down by the roadside to rest. On ran Johnny Cake, and by he came to two ditch diggers, who were digging a ditch. "Where are ye going, Johnny Cake?" said they. He said, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and two well-diggers, and I can outrun you too." "Ye can ye? We'll see about that," said they, and they threw down their spades and ran after him too. But Johnny Cake soon outstripped them also, and seeing they could never catch him, they gave up the chase and sat down to rest. On went Johnny Cake. By he came to a bear. The bear said, "Where are ye going, Johnny Cake?" He said, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and two well-diggers and two ditch diggers, and I can outrun you too." "Ye can ye?" growled the bear. "We'll see about that," and trotted as fast as his legs could carry him after Johnny Cake, who never stopped to look behind him. Before long, the bear was so far behind that he saw he might as well give up the hunt first as last, and stretched himself out by the roadside to rest. On went Johnny Cake, and by he came to a wolf. The wolf said, "Where ye going, Johnny Cake?" He said, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and 2 well diggers and 2 ditch diggers and a bear, and I can outrun you too." "Ye can ye?" snarled the wolf. "We'll see about that." And he set into a gallop after Johnny Cake, who went on and on so fast that the wolf too saw there was no hope of overtaking him, and he too lay down to rest. On went Johnny Cake, and by he came to a fox that lay quietly in the corner of a fence. The fox called out in a sharp voice, but without getting up. "Where ye going, Johnny Cake?" He said, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and 2 well diggers and 2 ditch diggers and a bear and a wolf, and I can outrun you too." The fox said, "I can't quite hear you, Johnny Cake. Won't you come a little closer?" turning his head a little to one side. Johnny Cake stopped his race for the first time and went a little closer, and called out in a very loud voice, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and 2 well diggers and 2 ditch diggers and a bear and a wolf, and I can outrun you too." "Can't quite hear you. Won't you come a little closer?" said the fox in a feeble voice as he stretched out his neck towards Johnny Cake and put one paw behind his ear. Johnny Cake came up close, and leaning towards the fox, screamed out, "I've outrun an old man and an old woman and a little boy and 2 well diggers and 2 ditch diggers and a bear and a wolf, and I can outrun you too." "You can you?" yelped the fox, and he snapped up the Johnny Cake in his sharp teeth in the twinkling of an eye. Tired Tim by Walter de la Mare. Poor tired Tim. It's sad for him. He lags the long bright morning through, ever so tired of nothing to do. He moons and mopes the livelong day, nothing to think about, nothing to say. Up to bed with his candle to creep, too tired to yawn, too tired to sleep. Poor tired Tim. It's sad for him. The Little Red Hen. A little red hen lived in a barnyard. She spent almost all of her time walking about the barnyard in her pickety-peckety fashion, scratching everywhere for worms. She dearly loved fat, delicious worms, and felt that they were absolutely necessary to the health of her children. As often as she found a worm, she would call "chuck, chuck, chuck" to her chickies. When they were gathered about her, she would distribute choice morsels of her tidbit. A busy little body was she. A cat usually napped lazily in the barn door, not even bothering herself to scare the rats, who ran here and there as he pleased. And as for the pig, who lived in the sty, he did not care what happened as long as he could eat and grow fat. One day, the little red hen found a seed. It was a wheat seed, but the little red hen was so accustomed to bugs and worms that she supposed this to be some new and perhaps very delicious kind of meat. She bit it gently and found that it resembled a worm in no way whatsoever as to taste, although, because it was long and slender, a little red hen might easily be fooled by its appearance. Carrying it about, she made many inquiries as to what it might be. She found it was a wheat seed, and that, if planted, it would grow up. And, when ripe, it could be made into flour, and then into bread. When she discovered that, she knew it ought to be planted. She was so busy hunting food for herself and her family that naturally she thought that she ought not to take time to plant it. So she thought of the pig, upon whom time must hang heavily, and of the cat who had nothing to do, and of the great fat rat with his idle hours, and she called loudly, "Who will plant the seed?" But the pig said, "Not I." And the cat said, "Not I." And the rat said, "Not I." "Well then," said the little red hen, "I'll do it myself." And she did. Then she went on with her daily duties through the long summer days, scratching for worms and feeding her chicks, while the pig grew fat, and the cat grew fat, and the rat grew fat, and the wheat grew tall and ready for harvest. So, one day the little red hen chanced to notice how large the wheat was, and that the grain was ripe. So she ran about calling briskly, "Who will cut the wheat?" The pig said, "Not I." The cat said, "Not I." And the rat said, "Not I." "Well then," said the little red hen, "I'll do it myself." And she did. She got the sickle from among the farmer's tools in the barn and proceeded to cut off all of the big plant of wheat. On the ground lay the nicely cut wheat, ready to be gathered and threshed, but the newest and yellowest and downiest of Mrs. Hen's chicks set up a peep, peep, peeping in their most vigorous fashion, proclaiming to the world at large, but most particularly to their mother, that she was neglecting them. Poor little red hen, she felt quite bewildered and hardly knew where to turn. Her attention was sorely divided between her duty to her children and her duty to the wheat, for which she felt responsible. So again, in a very hopeful tone, she called out, "Who will thresh the wheat?" But the pig, with a grunt, said, "Not I." And the cat, with a meow, said, "Not I." And the rat, with a squeak, said, "Not I." So the little red hen, looking, it must be admitted, rather discouraged, said, "Well, I'll do it myself." And she did. Of course, she had to feed her babies first, though, and when she had gotten them all to sleep for their afternoon nap, she went out and threshed the wheat. Then she called out, "Who will carry the wheat to the mill to be ground?" Turning their backs with snippy glee, the pig said, "Not I." And the cat said, "Not I." And the rat said, "Not I." So the good little red hen could do nothing but say, "Then I'll do it myself." And she did. Carrying the sack of wheat, she trudged off to the distant mill. There, she ordered the wheat ground into beautiful white flour. When the miller brought her the flour, she slowly walked back all the way to her own barnyard in her own pickety-peckety fashion. She even managed, in spite of her load, to catch a nice juicy worm now and then, and had one left for the babies when she reached them. Those cunning little fluffballs were so glad to see their mother. For the first time, they really appreciated her. After this strenuous day, Mrs. Hen retired to her slumbers earlier than usual. Indeed, before the colours came into the sky to herald the setting of the sun, her usual bedtime hour. She would have liked to sleep late in the morning, but her chicks, joining in the morning chorus of the hen yard, drove away all hopes of such a luxury. Even as she sleepily half opened one eye, the thought came to her that today the wheat must somehow be made into bread. So after her children were fed and made sweet and fresh for the day, she hunted up the pig, the cat, and the rat. Still confident that they would surely help her someday, she sang out, "Who will make the bread?" Alas, for the little red hen. Once more her hopes were dashed, for the pig said, "Not I." The cat said, "Not I." And the rat said, "Not I." So the little red hen said once more, "Then I'll do it myself." And she did. She went and put on a fresh apron and a spotless cook's cap, moulded the bread, divided it into loaves, and put it in the oven to bake. All the while the cat sat lazily by, giggling and chuckling. At close hand, the vain rat powdered his nose and admired himself in a mirror. In the distance could be heard the long-drawn snores of the dozing pig. At last, the great moment arrived. A delicious odour was wafted upon the autumn breeze. Everywhere the barnyard citizens sniffed the air with delight. The red hen ambled in her pickety-peckety way toward the source of all this excitement. Although she appeared to be perfectly calm, in reality she could only with difficulty restrain an impulse to dance and sing. For had she not done all the work on this wonderful bread? Small wonder that she was the most excited person in the barnyard. She did not know whether the bread would be fit to eat, but, joy of joys, when the lovely brown loaves came out of the oven, they were done to perfection. Then, probably because she had acquired the habit, the red hen called, "Who will eat the bread?" All the animals in the barnyard were watching hungrily and smacking their lips in anticipation. And the pig said, "I will." The cat said, "I will." And the rat said, "I will." But the little red hen said, "No, you won't. I will eat it myself." And she did. Escape at Bedtime by Robert Louis Stevenson. The lights from the parlour and the kitchen shone out through the blinds and the windows and bars. And high overhead and all moving about, there were thousands of millions of stars. There ne'er were such thousands of leaves on a tree, nor of people in church or the park, as the crowds of the stars that looked down upon me and that glittered and winked in the dark. The dog and the plough and the hunter and all, and the star of the sailor and Mars. These shone in the sky, and the pail by the wall would be half full of water and stars. They saw me at last, and they chased me with cries, and they soon had me packed into bed. But the glory kept shining and bright in my eyes, and the stars going round in my head. Silver by Walter de la Mare. Slowly, silently, now the moon walks the night in her silver shoon. This way and that she peers and sees silver fruit upon silver trees. One by one, the casements catch her beams beneath the silvery thatch. Couched in his kennel, like a log, with paws of silver, sleeps the dog. From their shadowy coat, the white breasts peep of doves in a silver, feathered sleep. A harvest mouse goes scampering by with silver claws and a silver eye. And moveless fish in the water gleam by silver reeds in a silver stream.